Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm good, David. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for meeting with me today. I know you're a busy person, so I won't take up too much of your time. So I just have a few questions for you today.
Happily. And thank you for being interested.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey into politics. What drew you to pursue it?
Oh, it's probably no secret to anybody that's followed my work that inequality is the reason that I became an elected official. I'm a civil rights attorney by trade. And like a lot of queer people, I found myself living in a state that lacked all LGBTQ civil rights, housing, employment, public accommodations, education, insurance, all of it. And I did what I knew to do first as a civil rights attorney to try to make a bunch of change. And Pennsylvania, my state at the time, was the second largest state in the country that had never elected an out elected official to our General Assembly. And there's just a ton of metrics about why that matters. So I tried to elect a couple of people to our General Assembly over the years. And then, with the help of a lot of friends and a lot of family, took an opportunity in Philadelphia to run myself. And that was just a little over 10 years ago.
Is there anything like in childhood or in your upbringing that you saw kind of steered you in that direction?
Absolutely. I public service and women in power are sort of the root of my childhood. My parents are both retired now, lieutenant colonels in the army. They met during Vietnam. My mom enlisted and my dad was drafted, and they stayed active duty military for most of their adult lives and raised my brothers and sister and I at army bases all over the United States. So public service was sort of their both passion and their careers, and it drove sort of the adventures of my childhood, along with the fact that my mom was by and large one of the highest ranking women on any base I ever lived on. And I grew up in what I always describe as a very co-equal household, and I saw equality every single day of my life until I walked outside of my family's, front door. And so it wasn't a stretch for me when I went off to law school to do work on women's and reproductive rights and on internationally on human rights, that would lend itself to doing civil rights work, here at home.
So it was just in your blood.
I hope so. It's certainly in my sweat.
And so, how is your new role as managing director of public policy and government affairs for Out Leadership different from any other position you've held?
In many ways, I think it's sort of the summation of a lot of the learning experiences and a lot of the careers that I've had up until this point. After law school, I didn't go straight into politics or civil rights. I was a disability attorney. After being a disability attorney, I worked my way into civil rights work and ultimately into equality policy. But one of the things that's always been really clear is that in every legislature, every legislative environment, from city councils to Congress, there are very powerful players and very powerful entities. Oftentimes among elected officials, it's the leadership positions, but oftentimes among those entities, it's the most powerful businesses that have an influence in that state or that city or on that government. And what I know is that the members of Out Leadership want to be able to use their clout and their power as major businesses, some of the most powerful businesses in the world, to help drive equality in the places where they do business. Among our members are Comcast and Amazon and Bank of America, companies that believe deeply in equality, but also operate in every single state in the United States, including all of those states where equality is still not the law of the land.
What do you hope to accomplish in this role specifically?
I hope that I'm able to work very closely with the government affairs and lobbying groups of our members to really help them and empower them to use their strength to drive equality in all of those places and all of those times when they're advocating for themselves. I want them advocating for equality as well. The Fortune 100 and the Fortune 500 in the United States are largely expressly supportive of LGBTQ equality and show that in many ways. But I want them to proclaim that equality alongside their ask. When they're talking about taxes and zoning and supply chains, I want them talking about why equality is good for business, why there's a return on equality, as we like to say at Out Leadership. And I think that if I'm able to do that over this next year and really engage our businesses both globally and in states that rank really low on the Out Leadership Business Equality Index, states like Kansas and Texas, where we just had a roundtable where we gathered corporate leaders and equality leaders and thought leaders, and around the Texas region to talk about what they can do to drive equality in a relatively low equality state. That's what success will look like. If a year from now we're having this conversation and we're talking about all of the countries and all of the states where we drove equality conversations among the states and countries' most powerful players.
That's, yeah, excellent work and extremely important initiatives. I know that, with pride organizations, across the country and around the globe, there's been this feeling of like making prides too corporate because of their inability to reflect the equality that we're looking for as the LGBTQ plus community, right? Do you think that the work that you're doing could mitigate or help alleviate some of that frustration that pride organizations or the queer community feels towards, corporate companies or businesses that might, be easier to create a relationship?
I suspect that it will, in part because I share all of those same frustrations. Every one of us can spot performative equality from a mile away, especially if you work in equality, if you understand the difference between actually doing equality and just talking about it or being a pundit for equality. We can spot that difference. And every one of us talks about what it means to slap a rainbow flag, and now an integrated rainbow flag, on the side
Yeah.
of your own logo and pretend that you're supporting us in Pride Month or in National Coming Out Month. What I hope is that those things are all important, and many of them are derived from those companies' own ERGs and a lot of LGBTQ work that's going into those companies to make those visible things happen. But as at Out Leadership, we understand that equality is also part of the name of the game when it comes to driving business as well. This stuff matters for HR and it does matter for PR, but it also matters for their bottom line. And we want our members and we want other companies to understand that if they're going to operate successfully in a future where they, can capture market share, where they can see growth, they're going to have to do so with an understanding that consumers and employees believe in and want equality. For LGBTQ people, for women, for we want racial and ethnic justice, and it's deeply important.
Excellent. I'm excited to see that work come to fruition. I know you were recently at the White House. As an out politician, what does it mean to you to have been present during President Biden's signing of the Respect of Marriage Act for Marriage Act?
It is in many ways bittersweet. I am forever grateful to have had the opportunity to be at the White House, to join several thousand LGBTQ advocates and activists that have fought for marriage equality for generations. And it was really critically important to see, as the president said, something that while the Supreme Court had recognized, it's a sort of a different game altogether to have elected representatives recognized. And I agree with him completely. But also there's the acknowledgement that part of the reason this is happening is because the Supreme Court has made it very clear in their recent attack on women's reproductive rights that marriage equality is on the table as well. And so, some of what we're seeing led by the efforts of Tammy Baldwin was to ensure that there are more protections for LGBTQ people, who are going to get married. Because we suspect that we're going to see attacks from both now the House of Representatives and from the Supreme Court on our marriage equality rights. And so we have to enshrine them in law better. And I was grateful that the president and Congress could do that.
That's great. I saw your photos. It looked amazing. What a great time to celebrate. Outside of your political career, what kind of a person is Brian Sims?
My friends would tell you that I'm a lot more solitary, I think, than people tend to think that I am. My idea of you're actually looking at part of my idea of a perfect weekend. I have a lot of friends and I like to spend as much time with them as I can, but I also have a really amazing dog and a phenomenal boyfriend, and I like to spend as much time with them as I can as well. I don't know. I like being outside. I am one of those people that sort of lives on the road and really enjoys being on the road. And I like finding people in their environments, not necessarily bringing them into mine.
Right. Do you think your political career will take you outside of Pennsylvania ever?
My political career has taken me outside of Pennsylvania since the very early days of my political career. In the first year of my political career, I was asked to travel to Japan to help swear in then Ambassador-elect Kennedy as the ambassador to Japan. And I sort of have spent the last 10 years on the road trying to convince out LGBTQ leaders all across the country to run for office. I've had a chance to do it in several dozen states. What I hope is that over the next year with Out Leadership and working closely with the 100 members of Out Leadership, that I'll be able to really drive equality in a different way in many of those same states where I was trying to help elect out leaders. Now I want to help give them more tools, more resources, more privileges to fight for equality in their states. And it's something that I hope Out Leadership will afford me the opportunity to do.
Excellent. That sounds great. At this time, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
No, just that I'm grateful that 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 your instinct is interested and understands that we really have gained more of our rights over the last 20 years, we as an LGBTQ plus community, by telling our stories than in any legislature or in Congress. And so what you do by telling all of our stories, by keeping people abreast of what we're doing and why we're doing it, is the work of equality. And so I'm very grateful that you do it.
Absolutely. We're happy to do it. All right. Well, thank you so much. I wish you happy holidays and so much luck and success in the new year.
Right back at you. Hopefully we'll get to catch up in the new year.
Yeah, for sure. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.